of Ghana is currently ranked 3rd and 30th on the Africa and the Global Press Freedom Index, respectively. But government has an ambitious plan to occupy the first spot. That's according to President Akufo-Addo, who is upbeat. A vibrant and unfettered media is the most effective way to hold government and society to the highest standards of honesty, self-discipline, discipline and delivery. Addressing Africa Journalist Leadership Conference underway in Accra, the president said, although vilified by a section of the Ghanaian media as he feels, he is unapologetic about the repeal of the criminal libel law. Presidential correspondent Elton Bobe was there, now reports.
So for the next 2 days, senior journalists from across Africa are here in Accra to deliberate on key issues affecting the work of journalists on the continent. Key among them is the safety of journalists, the creeping culture of silence in most African states, and also remuneration or salary for workers who work as journalists, which according to some of them is nothing to write home about. Now, a few minutes ago, the opening ceremony took off, where President Akufo-Addo himself, a media manager before he became president, spoke about what his government has done so far in ensuring the safety of journalists in the country. He says he's unapologetic about the repeal of the criminal libel law and the passage of the right to information law. But he was also quick to add that journalists must allow themselves to be criticized because of the work they do. And for that reason, criticizing the work of journalists cannot be said to be an attack on the media, something that he is not happy with. But he condemned recent news in the media where journalists in the line of duty have been attacked. He says such acts must be condemned at all costs.
That frown on or even criminalize free speech. On a day like this, it is also important to consider some of the emerging challenges to media freedom. One of them is what constitutes an attack on media freedom. It cannot be right, no matter where in the world the journalists are physically attacked or prevented from doing their work. Once that happens, it is an attack on media freedom, and it must be roundly condemned by all. As George Orwell rightly puts it, and I quote, "Freedom of the press, if it means anything at all, means the freedom to criticize and oppose," unquote. However, there seems to be an emerging narrative which is being proffered by some in Ghana that critiquing the work of a journalist constitutes an attack on media freedom. That certainly cannot be described as an attack on media freedom. Having the freedom to criticize and oppose should also mean that the media is ready to accept and work with criticisms of its work by the citizenry or officialdom. That, for me, is one of the surest ways of improving the public discourse of our respective countries, and we should all strive towards realizing this. This conference should also seek to address the phenomena of misinformation campaigns and fake news, which sometimes, unfortunately, are propagated by some in the media. The tendency to report on only one side of a story and pass judgment on it, without wanting to learn or give a fair amount of reportage to the other side, stifles the truth. The media should only be concerned about reporting the facts and should not lend themselves to being bought or being used to destroy the reputation of others. The media has immeasurable power to build up the confidence and values of our societies and their institutions, and therefore ought to be assisted in discharging their duties at all times. I appeal to media practitioners on the continent to take a second look at the immense power they wield and the responsibility they owe their societies and their peoples, and ensure that they do not sacrifice integrity and the future of our societies on the altar of an instant scoop or ill-considered publication. The Rwanda genocide in 1994 presents probably the best example of the calamity that can befall a country when the media is oblivious or chooses to ignore this particular sacred role.
President of the Ghana Journalists Association, Afel Moni, spoke about remuneration in the media space. And according to him, it is nothing to write home about. According to him, some journalists are poorly paid, some are not paid at all. And for this is allowing so many unprofessionalism in the space, something that he wants media owners to take it up and ensure that journalists are rightly paid.
We are fully aware that journalism is risk-prone, but not cash-rich profession. However, the vertiginous rise in the number of at-risk journalists in Africa, the lion-like savagery and animalistic abuse of their rights are totally unacceptable. In this regard, we welcome the policy direction of the Biden administration to sharpen its focus on press freedom and the preponderance of threats against journalists in the world, including our dear continent, Africa. Well before this policy direction was articulated, the media in Ghana enjoyed rock-solid support from the American embassy. This support must be replicated in every part of the continent. Another issue which should be tackled with all-absorbing attention and all-consuming seriousness is the precarious working conditions of journalists in Africa. In instances too numerous to cite, even the slave wages of journalists are in arrears. And in scenarios tearfully painful to recall, some journalists are not paid at all. A famous Ghanaian parlance has it that man must eat or man must survive. And this survival instinct explains, but does not justify, the proneness of any poorly paid, heavily owed, or zero-salaried journalists to be cheaply bought, easily compromised, or willfully become a chief of mischief. The Director General of GBC, Professor Amin Ahassan, rightly asserted yesterday during a case call by 5 leaders that poorly paid journalists are a threat to democracy. Simply put, we cannot reverse the democratic retrogression on the continent or deodorize the democratic stench in parts of the continent characterized by the virus of third termism and military coup if journalists are not sufficiently empowered, pocket-wise, to be diligent to their mandate and dutiful to the public.
Elton Brobe brought in that report.